it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video. Today I want to talk to you guys about what I think of as EDC plus knives or hard use knives, and I want to share my favorite EDC plus knife along with the close competitors that I still really enjoy. So I'm going to work through these knives. I'm kind of start with the more budget friendly and work my way up. But that's about the only organization that I'm going to give to this particular video. So let me get these out of the way, and I'm not going to be super strict. I didn't go and Google every single one of these knives beforehand, but let's start with the Rat Model 1 because it's pretty budget friendly. This is one of the first, in fact, this is the first nicer folding knife I bought, not this particular one. This is an upgrade to that, but this is a great knife. It's simple, it's reliable, it's comfortable, it's well built, and the materials are decent and the performance is more than decent for the price. And this is a knife that will really take a beating. There are stories out there of people doing all kinds of stupid stuff to their Rat Model 1s. Famously, the Apostle P talked about even wrecking his, right? He actually bent the lock, and the knife was kind of what most people would consider ruined. He took it apart, straightened the lock, kind of got it back into, a reasonable level of functionality, put it back together, and it was fine. It just carried on. And so this is a knife that really can take a lot of abuse and doesn't break the bank. So certainly, and so for those two reasons, right, you can really do whatever you want with this knife and not give it a second thought. One, it'll probably survive most of those stupid damaging things that you're doing with it. But two, if it doesn't, it's not that big a deal. Next knife on the list is going to be another budget offering, this time the Real Steel H6, a little heavier, a little thicker blade stock, and there are a couple little tweaks here. The 14C28 steel, I think, is one thing. So costs close to the same as a Rat Model 1, but I like the ergonomics a little bit better. It's a little bit more heavily built, and the steel is better. And so now, but it also weighs a little bit more. Let me say that. I think it's like half an ounce heavier. Now, because of all those things, by the way, there's a lot to say about this knife. The other thing about this knife that needs to be noticed is there are some variants available. So you gotta, if you have preferences in terms of blade shape and that kind of thing, there are a number of blade shapes available. And there's even like an expensive one of these. Anyway, this guy makes the list because it's another one of those knives that can really take a beating, that inspires a great deal of confidence, and does it for a very reasonable price point. All right, now, beyond both of these, I've got to bring in the Cold Steel Voyager. Bigger, yes. Tougher, yes. A little bit more expensive. I think these guys are like $55, maybe $60, so they're a little bit more, but you're getting a tank of a knife. Now it's bigger, probably a little harder to carry than the other two knives we've looked at in terms of just its thickness and how much pocket space it takes up. It doesn't weigh more. All right. But another fantastic knife, very comfortable. And so I wanted to throw all of these in. I love all of these knives for the fact that they give you so much bang for your buck. And, sometimes, we often think of like hard use as this overbuilt titanium frame lock that costs $500. These are exceptional examples of heavy duty, hard use type of knives that do a great job and that are going to perform for you and will not break the bank. If you end up actually breaking or losing one of these, you're not going to be that concerned. Now, I want to move into sort of the next tier, and I've got a couple of cold steels, and there's going to be a bunch of cold steels in this video. We're talking about hard use knives. How could it not have a bunch of cold steels? But the first two I want to bring in are the American Lawmen and the Recon 1. And these make this list because, well, yes, they cost a little more than the previous knives we were looking at. They're still very affordable and deliver a ton of utility. Now, where I would sort of steer people on these two knives is if you want something larger and more tactical, then go to the Recon 1. All right, if you want something that's more carryable, if you want just an EDC style knife that's really ready for anything, then the American Lawman is a great option. You can get a ton of work done with this knife. It's tough as nails. It cuts like crazy. It's fairly comfortable in hand. And then, of course, that triad lock gives you all the confidence you could ever want. The only drawback is it's not going to be quite as ergonomic as the Recon One, and it's not as large. So there's some knives, there are some tasks where you want that larger folder, and the Recon One is going to shine a little more in that area. Now, still pretty close. I think these both go for right around that $100 mark. Pretty close to that, but maybe bumping it up a little to like 140 or something is the Steel Will Apostate. This is a knife that um, I don't know. I had some doubts about initially. One, I don't find it to be the most attractive knife on the planet, but once you get this in your hand and you start using it, it's extremely impressive. The action is phenomenal. The ergonomics are really, really nice. And here's the big thing. This is a big, thick, heavily built blade. Like this is designed to be very, very tough. And normally that means a blade doesn't cut that well, but this cuts way better than I have ever anticipated. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record here. The other thing is the action, and this is one of the few knives where these thumb studs, or well, they're actually stop pins, but they serve double duty. They work really, really well as thumb studs as well as stop pins. So really, really great knife, very much underappreciated. And I feel like if they did an Apostate 2 and just some minor tweaks, this could be even more of a home run than it already is. But again, even as it stands, very confidence inspiring. I would not hesitate to take this in the forest. I would not hesitate to do just about any hard use task you could think of with this particular knife. Now we're going to move into some slightly more expensive stuff, and we're going to bring out one of my all-time favorite folders. This is the Benchmade Crooked River. Mine is wearing Rogue Blade Works. Pretty sure that's right. Could be wrong. Man, I hope I don't get that wrong. But anyway, mine is wearing some custom heart scales and pivot collar and clip. And oh, even the backspacer is not original. So I've switched out all of those components, and I really, really like the overall look of this. I do have some other options. I've got a carbon fiber backspacer for this, as well as the original. And then I've got a couple of clip options, but this is the particular setup that I've got now, and I really enjoy it. Again, very confidence inspiring knife, comfortable, heavy duty. You know, this is definitely stepping up a notch from everything we've looked at previous to this, but still reasonably affordable and reasonably carryable. There is a smaller version of this knife, which of course you guys know to me is not going to be highly appealing, but I find this to be absolutely beautiful. The construction is very good. The materials, you know, the S30V with this nice clip point, balanced grind to be pretty tough and pretty reliable. All of those things make this a really, really fantastic offering. The last thing I have to say about this knife before we move on, one of the reasons I love it so much is I find it's just this fantastic amalgamation of a traditional hunting knife with a modern folding knife. So I really, really love the aesthetics of this as well as the functionality. Keeping it in that vein for a few minutes, let's grab a couple of other somewhat expensive and very useful knives. So here's the ZT0308. I think this is a pretty quintessential zero tolerance. Again, it's, you know, and this is not as crazily overbuilt as some knives, but it's certainly sufficient for the kind of roles that I would put this in. It's, you know, heavy duty construction, fairly substantial blade, nicely ground though, so it still cuts well. And this is, again, a knife that inspires a lot of confidence that I wouldn't hesitate to put to some pretty hard use, but which is also enjoyable to use, carry, fidget with, all that kind of stuff. So it strikes a pretty nice balance. Thinking of striking those balances, let's throw another knife in here. That is really exceptional. This, of course, is the 8010. It's an absolute tank of a knife, very tough, very heavy duty, very confidence inspiring, also beautiful. I love this design. And this is, you know, we're now getting into, these are all favorites of mine. This is on the very short list of my favorite knives, along with another knife. And we're going to, you know, I love everything about this. I love the action. I love the lock. I love the blade grind. I love the look. And now we're in another knife that I feel the same way about. This is, of course, the Riot Torrent. Now, what I like about this is a refined, elegant, heavy duty folding knife that, you know, it doesn't look like what it is. Okay, so this is absolutely well built. It's well put together. It's going to be extremely durable, extremely tough. I would not hesitate to put this into a lot of different hard use tasks, and yet it still looks almost gentlemanly. It still looks classy and refined, and for those reasons, I adore this knife. Now, there's another knife that's similar to this. And in fact, I did a whole video comparing the two of them. And that, of course, is the XM18, another knife that I really, really enjoy. And which is, again, very hard use, designed to just really take a beating and be able to deliver everything you would ever need from a folding knife. And really, you know, all of these knives are right on the edge, right? If there's any hesitation that one of the knives on the table here can't do what you need to do, then you probably should have been using a fixed blade in the first place. When we're talking about the XM18, the ergonomics are great. The action now with the tri-way pivot is great. I love this slicer grind. I like the look of this knife. I like the construction of this knife. Boy, there's so many good things that I can say about the XM18. Over the years, I think this is about my sixth one, and it is almost exactly what I want. I don't know whether I would, you know, I'm toying with getting rid of this one and replacing it with something else, but this is still very, very close to folding knife perfection for me. Last two on the list. First up is going to be the Chris Reeve Knives Incosi. And what I love about this is absolutely hard use. It's overbuilt, it's reliable, it's durable, it's fantastic. The blade, you know, here's what I like about it. The way this is built and the components that it includes, the blade grind, the way the handle is, you know, they're heavy duty and hard use without being crazy, right? This will do as much as and more than every knife that we've looked at here. And yet it demonstrates that to be hard use and to be heavy duty, a knife doesn't have to weigh 16 ounces. It doesn't have to have 1/4 inch blade stock. It just has to be well built and have overbuilt components so that you're adding that strength in a much more nuanced way. So, you know, those large pivots for stability, big stop pin for longevity, even the pivot screw itself, the kind of hollow grind that it does. They call it, I think, a large hollow grind, where it's just a gentle hollow grind. So it still ends up cutting well, but you've also got a lot of material and a lot of strength. Yeah, lots of things that are really, really cool about the Incosi. And then I do have a favorite. It is the Cold Steel Formax. Now, I know this is not the most practical knife that we've looked at on the table here. For me, it's an occasional carry, and sometimes even a very occasional. You know, maybe some months I only maybe carry this, especially in the summer, 1 or 2 days of the month. But you know, this thing just makes me smile beyond belief. It's huge, it's ridiculous, but it's extremely comfortable. It's extremely strong. It cuts really, really well. And it is carryable. Like, you know, yeah, it's not the most comfortable knife to carry ever, and you definitely know you've got it in your pocket, but it's not so crazily gigantic and bulky that it's you know, useless for carrying around. I still use it and carry it quite often. Also, they got the action really right on this, and there's a lot of Cold Steels where the action is not great, but this is very good. The one sort of weak point on this knife is, of course, the pocket clip, and that's pretty much the weak point on most Cold Steels. Very, very stiff, very high pocket retention, and you know, I've done a whole video talking about Cold Steel clips, so we won't belabor that point. But there is my all-time favorite EDC plus, hard use, whatever you want to call it. You know, follow up to my favorite EDC discussion. And that's why I think some of these knives, I got asked, like, why didn't that knife make the list? And this is why, because they actually belong in a different category. So there you go, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check those channel sponsors down below. When you use that discount code, it's a huge help to the channel. Finally, we'll talk to you soon.